It was mid-February and early in the morning, around 2 a.m., when I woke to hear my front door open. I left my room, walked to the top of the stairs to see my 5-year-old sister leaving the house. I quickly got my shoes on and coat and ran outside to see my little sister halfway down the block. I quickly ran to stop her and asked what she was doing. She told me she wanted to play with a tall man. She points to the end of the block, and in the direction I came, I saw about a 7-foot tall man in a black hoodie, not wearing a mask. "Who the fuck are you and what do you want from my sister?" I screamed. The man just tilted his head. My sister went to join him, but I stopped her. "I asked you a question," I screamed again. The man started walking towards us, and I picked up my sister. Since the man was blocking the way to my house, we ran to my girlfriend's house on the next block. When I got to the front porch, I started knocking like crazy and screamed, "Jessica, open the door!" My girlfriend opened the door, very pissed that I woke her up. Before she could say anything, she noticed me panicked and pulled me and my sister in the house. She asked me what happened, and I told her about the man. She was horrified, pulled out her phone to call the police. I told her not to because they would think I was crazy. I stayed for a few hours later. My girlfriend insisted that I stay over, and I refused, simply because my parents wouldn't believe me. I went home. My sister was asleep by this point and didn't see the man once. When morning came, I didn't tell my mom because she wouldn't believe me. When I asked my sister, she said I didn't remember. I still haven't told my parents and my sister, and I don't plan to. Many spooky encounters have happened to me in my childhood and adolescence, but there's only very few that I hang on to instead of shrugging them off and erasing them from my mind altogether. The story I'm about to tell you is long due to a chain of events, and forgive me if this story gets a little stressed out, more than it needs to be thorough, intricate detail. So the story starts about 8 years ago. I was a fairly young kid who lived in a trailer park between 2 towns in eastern Iowa. Each town was about 5 miles out, and there wasn't much to them at the time. The trailer park was pretty desolate. It was consumed by fields of corn and timber. Back then, it wasn't hard for me and my childhood friend Brock, who I'm still in contact with today, to stay occupied. Cap guns and lightsaber battles were part of our daily agenda. It was nice and simple. However, things started to spiral a bit, and I'm still trying to come to grips with them today. It was a cloudy with a musky overhang summer day. Me and my friend had been doing our normal ritual of pretending to fight off Sith overlords, until one of us, and I'm not sure who, exactly had the bright idea to bring the game into the cornfield. Looking back in retrospect, it is one of the most foolish mistakes that could have saved me and Brock a whole lot of trouble. Our game shifted to the cornfield, and it was really cool until about 10 minutes in. We got so into the game that at some point we had split up. At first, this wasn't a bad idea. Things turned grim quickly. After another 10 minutes or so, me and my friend regrouped back in the cornfield, and what we saw still haunts me today. About 15 yards away was a distinguishable figure moving towards us. It was clearly a man, and he was roughly 6 feet tall. The man was looking at me straight in the eyes. I remember his face and appearance clearly. He was wearing torn-up jeans, a white shirt with sweat stains. His face was beaten up with scars and a slight purple tint in his lip. We were frozen in shock. He moved towards us, speeding up rapidly. He approached faster, accelerating towards us. I could see the malevolent intention in his eyes. I was froze for 10 to 15 seconds before I realized my friend had already booked it out of there. We ran for 5 minutes straight, not even looking behind us. We ended up making it out of the cornfield, regrouped once again, and made it to safety at his grandmother's. We made a pact to not tell either of our grandparents. However, it doesn't end there. A week later, things become more odd. Daily occurrences would happen. My grandfather would leave for work every morning at 7 a.m. sharp, but he would always find some random trinkets and surprises on our porch each day. However, they were never the same. To give a gist of some of the items from what I recall: a severed doll head, some notes with gibberish written on them, paper bags of human feces, and a pair of muddy shoes. It was midsummer now, and the collection of random items had come to a halt. I wish to say it was all over, but it wasn't. One night I had been gently falling asleep in my bed when I heard a soft knock on my window. Keep in mind I lived directly across the street from the cornfield where me and my friend had our first encounter. I hadn't been frightened by the knock as I figured it was just Brock wanting me to sneak out with him to fuck around. I peeked out my blinds. I was wrong. Across the street I saw the familiar silhouette dimly lit by the streetlights. His arms raised up, waving at me. I could see his yellow, crooked smile. I closed my blinds, rushed back to my grandparents' room, scared shitless, told them what happened, and had told them about the first encounter with my friend. They immediately dialed the police. They showed up very quick and made a futile attempt to comfort me. And again, it only gets worse from there. Another week or so later comes the final encounter. Me and my friend were not allowed to go anywhere alone at this point. We either had to escort each other or by adult. On the night of the last encounter, we were at my friend's house in the yard tossing the football. Daylight was dwindling down and fading into night. Me and my friend were about 20 feet away just playing catch. When I had thrown the ball pass and he went to retrieve it, as he went back to go, he noticed his attention shift towards the alley, which led to the shed door. His face grew pale. He walked towards me trying to play it off. He was obviously scared. He shoved me in the door and alerted his grandmother. He said, "He's in the shed. He's in the shed. Has a knife. Call the police." His grandmother didn't take a second thought and dialed them immediately. The police showed up and had to escort the man out of the shed. It turns out he had been following me and my friend around since the first encounter, and had been taking shelter in the shed since it had never been locked. We've both moved away from that neighborhood since then, and never spoke a word of it again. I give all consent for people to use this in their video. Just send me a message first and tell me who you are so I can listen to you read it, like for a YouTube video or something. One night I was staying alone at my house. I live in a 2-room trailer out in the woods of Texas. My house is not the best house, but at least we have a roof over our heads. My dad was working at the police department and wouldn't be home till midnight. He was on call that would take him all night before he would be able to come home. As any other night, I was sitting in my room playing my new Xbox I got. I was playing zombies when my dog outside started to bark. I looked outside my bedroom window because it faces the street. Usually the dogs bark when someone is in the driveway. When I looked outside, I didn't see a thing. 5 minutes later, I heard them barking again. I looked outside again and saw a black shadowy figure standing by my mailbox. I was horrified at the sight of this. I tried calling my dad, but he must have had his phone on silent or turned off because he didn't answer. I was freaking out, but not much to do because I had my dog with me, and that's it. My dog's name's Peyton. He's a big Belgian Malamute who is protective over me and my dad. I kept watching the window to make sure he wasn't getting any closer. After another 5 minutes had passed, I looked out my window again. The figure was gone. Peyton came up to me and whined. He usually does this when he wants something. I just fed him not that long ago, so I figured he needed to use the bathroom. I checked the window one more time to be sure, and he wasn't there. So I let Peyton out the back door. I didn't want to wait on the porch for him to finish. It was cold outside, and I also didn't want this guy watching me. After hearing Peyton come up to the door, I opened it. It wasn't Peyton. It was the same black figure I saw earlier. He had a black hoodie on and was covering his face so I couldn't see any features. He said with a scratchy voice, "Nice night tonight, huh?" I slammed the door, but he stopped and put his hand in the groove. I ran towards my phone and I sat on the table before I let Peyton outside. Now, I'm not a big burly kid. I'm just a little scrawny kid around 15, so this guy would have no problem taking me down, and that's exactly what he did. He tackled me to the floor before I could unlock my phone. We landed with a thud and I was fighting him because he was trying to take my clothes off. I slapped him in the face, which only made him mad and angrier. He held my arms down tighter and I couldn't move them. Thankfully, before this man did anything more to me, Peyton came rushing in. Peyton grabbed him by the neck and pulled him down. Peyton noticed the man was reaching for something in his pocket and bit the man on the arm. I jumped back and grabbed a skillet out of the kitchen and hit the guy across the face with it as hard as I could, and he fell on the floor out cold. Finally, my dad called back and I told him everything. In just a few minutes, he was there with 2 other cops tailing him. The man was lifted to the back seat of the second car, and he awoke from being knocked out and gave me a stare I will never forget. Thanks for listening, guys. Those are 3 more scary stories from BrosGrim.co.co. Thank you for listening. Please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, guys, to join the Sinful Nation. And let me know if you guys have any stories. Just email me from the info box below any of your true scary stories, and I will feature those next on the next video, guys. Thanks again, and stay sinful.